Welcome to Kingdomize, the podcast, where we discuss how to see our lives and our world through a kingdom lens, how to infuse kingdom culture into our families, our workplaces, and our cities, as we all participate in the dream of Jesus to see his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Welcome back to Kingdomize, the podcast. I am here with Bruce, and Bruce. Not true. Third one's Ian. Just thought I'd throw you off. You knew you were expecting me to say it. So every once in a while, you just got to throw a curveball because there's very little worse than being anticipated. Like if people know where you're going next, man, that is just so boring. So Ian, you're Bruce 3 for the day. Not true. All good. How's everyone doing? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us today, whether you're driving, in your office, at your home, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the feedback we're getting from you. And today we are still talking about leadership. So we're in a series called Kingdomize Everything, and sometimes we get stuck on things and just stay there forever. So we did that under the church banner. We could have talked about that forever. We've hit a space in leadership, and we keep going. Is this the last week? Nope, we got a couple more to go. So this is week 3 on leadership. And today, gentlemen, we're going to talk about fellowship. Fellowship under the banner of leadership. Really important dialogue, maybe one of the most important. And you actually don't hear about it a lot. I think it's written a lot in Scripture, and we're going to try to cover some of those spaces. But we're going to cover that today. And so, again, thanks for joining us. And here's how we want to start today. So last week, when we talked about leadership, Bruce Mann ended with the great C.S. Lewis quote. Now, Bruce, I don't know why you kept that from us. Like it was in your back pocket the whole time, and you held on. It was like if we were playing poker. It's like you had your cards right in your chest. It's like I've got the quote. And honestly, it was so good. It was so good. And a couple things I want to say here. First of all, it was a great quote, and secondly, you let in. And my friend C.S. Lewis said, "It's like so now your friend, you and C.S. are friends." That's amazing.
Wow. I enjoy his input into my life. I've never met, obviously, but I call him my friend. So.
How could you not, really? So Bruce, why don't you set this up for us and just read that quote again? It is fantastic. I can't lie.
Okay. And let me kind of give some context because it comes out of a sermon he did called "The Weight of Glory." And in our conversation today about fellowship, and in previous conversations about leadership, if you're kind of that alpha male or kind of high capacity leader, often we get very focused on we're task oriented. We want results. We want to get things done. We want to check things off of our list.
Guilty.
And under the banner of God's kingdom, kingdomizing, we have to recognize the highest value that we can contribute is how we show up and impact other people, not just checking things off our to-do list. And so the quote comes out of his revelation of the value of his neighbor. So let me read it to you. It says, "The load or weight or burden of my neighbor's glory should be laid daily on my back, a load so heavy that only humility can carry it, and the backs of the proud will be broken. It's with the awe and the circumspection proper to them that we should conduct all our dealings with one another. All friendships, all loves, all play, all politics. There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit. Next to the blessed sacrament itself, your neighbor is the holiest object presented to your senses. If he's your Christian neighbor, he's holy in almost the same way, for in him also Christ truly lies hidden, the glorifier and the glorified God. Glory himself is truly hidden." And obviously, the point there is that you know other souls are of eternal value, and so how we engage with them on a daily basis tells a lot about who we are and how we understand life and how we understand God's kingdom.
Yeah. Ian and Bruce, why don't you jump in on this for just a couple of minutes? I'd love to just kind of hang on this quote for a couple of minutes.
Well, I think that what Bruce Mann is identifying, when you look at it, you really see the Holy Spirit is continually glorifying Jesus. Jesus is glorifying the Father. And so their concern is the glory of the other. And so it's fascinating when we see in the Trinity, we see this model. And so I really do believe that it's the way that we're to be able to look and recognize one another. And it's not only the looking of then practically, what does this mean in the way that we speak and in the way that we act in relationship to one another? So it's a great challenge of what the C.S. Lewis quote is stating there. And so it's just it's a major challenge. I mean, I think we're going to touch on the Philippians 2 here in a bit, but where it actually, in most translations, it says, think not only of your own interest, but also the interest of others. The actual Greek is think not of your own interest, but only the interest of others. It is so extreme because then it goes on to talk about that's what Jesus did. And I won't elaborate because I don't want to take up more time than that, but it's quite the challenge of what we're called to in this, of thinking of the glory of the other.
Yeah.
I think, depending upon your historical, theological paradigm, I was brought up with the thoughts of either you're in or you're out, you're in or you're out. You're either in the kingdom, out of the kingdom, you're either saved or you're not saved. And there's obviously validity in that, but the underlying tone for that comment was those who are not in are of less value. But what C.S. Lewis is saying, all human beings have value, whether they're in or whether they're out, if you want to use that language. And I think that's quite a transformational to traditional evangelical. If it's not theology, it's definitely attitude. that we actually embrace people as we embrace Christ. And so I find that quite enlightening and inspiring and also very challenging.
In a broad sense, that is one of the marks of Christianity, right? The value of the individual, the worth of the individual. And Visho Mingawati, in the books that he talks about, the book that changed the world, he talks about how the Christian worldview, the value of the individual, was one of the things that was such a change in India, right? So what you're saying, Ian, is a mark of a Christian worldview that is really significant. One of the things that this does for me, Bruce, man, I kind of wish I would have had this quote about 22 years ago. 22 years ago when I turned 40, I thought it was going to be a great year. I was so excited about it. And that was the year that God said, okay, the rest of your life, you're going to spend digging out the gold and living for other people's destiny. I thought, okay, I'm 40 now. I'm going to go plant this church. It's going to be fantastic, blah, blah, blah. We're going to take over the world. And God said, well, actually, what I want you to do is find other people's destiny and help them get there. And it's like, excellent. Thanks for that. And so had I had this quote, it would have been really helpful. But that phrase, the weight of your neighbor's glory on your back, for me, that's such a great picture. And I don't see it as a burden. I see it as that's such a great picture of what we should be carrying all the time, that we carry the weight of their glory. And And I don't take it just as their glory to get to heaven, although it's partly. I see it as, how do we help them become the person God destined them to be? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually, he obviously is a master at language and communication, and the visual he creates of the weight of our neighbor's glory on our back is so heavy that only humility can carry it.
Yeah.
Which leads us into our conversation about being able to follow. Because in many ways, following is a form of leadership. It's a way of promoting someone else's destiny, of building into what they're doing, and to do it consciously at your own expense, or by taking there's in the last number of years there's been some popular videos called "I Am Second," and that is a distinctive of the Christian worldview, the kingdom worldview. And I mean, there's so many places we could go with this, but I find for myself this is the heavy lifting of being kingdomized. Because again, if you're task oriented, you get up in the morning. I got to get stuff done. Who can help me get it done? What can I get from them? How can I get out of them what I need to get what I have to do done? Can feel like it's the right thing to do, but is it really building the kingdom, or is it just building my kingdom? Yeah. And so that's not an easy road to go down, and continue to keep awareness and sensitivity to the people around us.
Oh, it really is the dynamic of this contrast. I know organizations that were entitled to actually be a hero, and another organization that their whole focus was being hero makers. So rather than ourself, and I think David and the men that he came to him, they're in debt, in distress, discontent, and they become mighty men. Jesus, in seeing the potential within those around him, he also developed it. But they're all teenage boys other than Peter, and yet he's unlocking it. And one of the final things, really just before he goes, is he takes the lowest position of a slave and he washes their feet. And he said, you need to do this for each other. I don't think it's just the foot washing alone, but it's that level of the low. And we don't even grasp this, because in our cultural understanding, it's so radically different. And so what would be the lowest thing that you could do within our society and our culture to be able to honor and prefer another? It's also, I feel like this is the antithesis to the Indian caste system, where you're seeking to prefer that you're going to eventually get at the top of the system through reincarnation by living a quality life. And rather than Jesus, it's the opposite. It's the dynamic of being at the bottom, lifting others up, serving others. It's just, this kingdom is so challenging, so radically different.
Yeah. Let me just throw the one verse in from Philippians, and we'll see where else we go. But Philippians 2:5 says, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage, but rather he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as man, he humbled himself by being obedient to death, even death on the cross. And so that initial part there about having the same mind, the same attitude, and the mindset of Christ is really, really important. That humility, and and the fellowship is, he did nothing without hearing the Father and seeing the Father say it or do it. Right. So really an important setup for us.
So I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of binary functions. It's a computer term, computer language programming, and I'm not a computer programmer, but I've learned this, that it's basically just a series of zeros and ones that tells the computer what to do. And it's binary, meaning one without the other doesn't function right. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't say anything. There's different forms of binary, influences. And so my question is, and what I've been kind of tossing around in my mind is actually following and leading are binary. They're incomplete without each other. And in many ways, following is a form of leading. And that's how connected they are. And obviously we see that Jesus demonstrated that in such, as you've just said, Brian, in such dramatic ways. He was intentional about not just talking about, serving, following, but demonstrating visibly and in very dramatic fashion the necessity of understanding this dynamic in the kingdom, that the first will be last, the greatest will be the least. There's this upside downness to God's kingdom that is, again, I would say is the biggest challenge to us, and particularly for those who have a natural inclination to take charge and lead. And so it's, I think this is a lifelong learning process for us.
One of the scriptures that stand out for me in this dialogue is in 1 Peter 2. So it's a scripture where Peter is talking about that God's building us into a spiritual house. We're all living stones being built into a spiritual house. And so the imagery I see when I see that is that, there are people in the level below us in the spiritual house, those bricks in the wall, if you will, and they're below us and we're building on them. So we're following them. And then there's people on the same level as us. So our peers, so to speak, we're iron sharpening iron. And then there's people building on top of us. And so at all times, maybe this is where you're heading, Bruce, is that it is binary. At all times, we're following and leading and sharpening. All of that's happening. And it's all significant, right? It's all really important.
And there's a real attractiveness in a community where that is organic, not scripted, where individuals defer to one another at different times because of strengths, because of opportunity, because of, just allowing them the opportunity to learn and grow. I could easily do this and maybe do it faster, but I want to give space for someone else. And I mean, again, Jesus demonstrated that when he sends out the disciples together, two by two, and gives them some instructions, very minimal instructions, really, and then brings them back, and then he debriefs. How did it go? What happened? Right? Like he demonstrates so clearly to us such powerful servant leadership. And we see that again in John, at the end of John, when Jesus declares at the Last Supper, I've completed the work I came to do. And it was about building into this group of followers that he was going to now commission to go out and take the message of the kingdom. And that was the one job description identified. There's, we don't have time to go into it, but really Jesus had two job descriptions: sacrificing and being an atoning sacrifice for salvation for the world, and serve a group of young leaders that he could teach, train, empower, and demonstrate what it meant to be a kingdom leader, and then commission them to go out and change the world.
I mean, there's what jumps to my mind is that 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 2. I'll just read that. It says, "You have heard me teach things and have been confirmed by many reliable witnesses. Now teach these truths to trustworthy people who will be able to pass them on to others." And so there's that whole, not metamorphosis, but there's that whole transition of, we're not here for ourselves, we're here for the people coming behind us, and we have learned from the people in front of us. And so, to your point, Bruce, to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower.
Yeah, we're not focusing on it today, but I think this has profound impact on our position as fathers, husbands, leading in those and following in those capacities. We won't, that's a different set of podcasts, but this is life. It's not just our vocation. It's not a vocational, skill or whatever. It's a life skill. It's a deep spiritual formation that I don't think ever really ends.
Yeah, yeah. As you're saying that, it speaks directly, for me, it speaks directly to the time when your kids are kind of like the 16 to 25 age group, or maybe too far, but where you're switching from being the person that lays down the law to the person that starts asking the questions to make sure they're living correctly on their own, right? It's like you're no longer just out there, follow me and just do what I do. It's like, no, now you're kind of coming alongside or even a little bit behind, going, I hope I did this well enough that they can live well, and kind of, because at that point they don't want to necessarily be told, right? And it is the time for us to either come alongside them or walk a little bit behind them to hope that what we've instilled them in is
Yeah.
the ideas of Christ, right?
Yeah.
And the
Serve
right.
their destiny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. We have days in our school system that are called Pro-D days, professional development. We also talk about personal development. But of everything that Jesus is really illustrating and demonstrating is about identifying the potential and really, I think, discipling in order to develop that potential within others. And really, if we're leaders or spiritual fathers, we need to be able to look at how many children do we have? Who are we really investing in, that we're seeing their potential and we're wanting to unlock it, we're wanting to develop it rather, and maybe our development in maturity is focusing on who are we developing, and is this our primary focus, is the development of others, and our reward is going to be by far greater by the investment that we make in those around us. It's that ripple effect concept. I can't remember the pastor's name, but he said, let me lead one person to Jesus in my lifetime, because he'd never led anybody. But then I think it was, the man's name was Billy Sunday. And Billy Sunday led many to Jesus, but one of them was Billy Graham. And it's sort of the ripple effect perspective of not only in salvation, but of maybe that our priority is got to be spiritual fathers, that we're looking at the success of others. And actually, then instead of just theorizing on this, the honest assessment would be, whether locally or globally, how many people am I investing in for their development? But this isn't just theory, but there's individuals that I'm specifically focused on because I see their potential and I want to be a part of unlocking and developing that potential. It's great for us or all the viewing audience to theorize in this, going, yes, 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 this is good. But then a practical application, really doing an assessment of whether or not we have the people that we're doing this with.
Yeah, 100%. One of the things that makes this hard for pastors, and we've talked about this before, when we hit a bit on it under the church leadership thing under Kingdomization, is that often we will invest in people and pour into their destiny as long as it's connected to the church. if you can fill a role in the church or help us with this, but it's much different pastorally to go, man, this guy's a business guy and I should invest in him, and he may never invest in the church, in our church or whatever. Like, that's a different thing. That's a different level of kingdom thinking that pastors, that I know it was a mindset shift I had to go through in this whole Kingdomization, and it is one of the ones that it is significant. Is how do you find people's destiny and then allow them to walk it out, even if it's not connected to your church.
I guess, we all have that growth point and aha moment, right? And I remember when there was a senior pastor from Australia trying to steal one of our best leaders in Next Level International to be a part of their local church. And I think he actually used that same language, in terms of, mate, I'm gonna steal one of your best leaders. And I says, oh no, you're not. Oh no, you're not. I'm giving him to you. I'm planting him to you. And I'm expecting you to send me 10 back. 10 back. So at that point, I knew I'd crossed over a line. I probably had not kind of been working towards it. It just became okay. So I understand that. I understand the kingdomization of leadership. I understand what fellowship is, and so that was such a good moment.
Yes.
Such a good moment, and it was a great moment to see the shot in the pastor's face.
Oh, Ian, you know Mike Bedell. Well, he came to Life Tree,
I
and
do.
I didn't know him, and I prophesied that he was here in Victoria because God had called him to plant a church. And he totally confirmed
Yeah.
that that's why he was there. But we sent over 40 of our people to go and plant with him. And we asked many of other people to
Wow.
not give to Life Tree for at least a year and to be giving to God's Garden
Yeah.
with Mike Bedell. And so we just
Wow.
majorly invested in him. And we have other illustrations like that. So we, in a wonderful way, we have a
Fantastic.
great reputation in the city because of what we've done on several occasions. And so I
Yeah.
really do believe that we talk about giving our best financially, but I think we should be giving away our best leaders, knowing that we can't outgive God. Our best leaders,
Yeah.
our best people, our best time and energy. So we were committed to this church succeeding. We did everything we possibly could in praying for them, giving, and sending 40 plus people.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyway,
Really
I'm
good.
boasting now, but I'm boasting in what we did everything to have this church and this leader and their people succeed. And I think that's what we're called to.
Well, it
Brian,
sounds like humility, so I'm going to say that we'll ban that under boasting in the Lord. How's that?
All right.
And you get to
All
do
right.
that. You get to do that.
Thank you
Brian,
for
can
your
I
grace.
just finish off with one illustration that shows the uniqueness about fellowship and leadership. So when I first started working in Eastern and Central Europe 30 plus years ago, they were just coming out of communism, and of course the model of leadership was dictatorship, basically. Why would you train anybody else? Because if you do, you're going to lose power and you're going to lose influence. So that was the paradigm that they were working in. And so at that time, a part of our training program was I brought my senior pastor with me, and so what was really difficult in those days for the brothers and sisters to understand was that now the senior pastor was with me in my area of responsibility, or as Paul says, in my field. He was coming under my leadership, and I was expecting his fellowship. And so for the Eastern Europeans at that time, they thought, no. Once you're king, once you're a leader, you're king everywhere and in every situation. And for that living illustration that no, my pastor's with me. When I'm in his environment, I'm serving his vision, his mandates. But when he's in my vision, then, or the vision that the Lord has given me, then he serves that. And so that became quite a unique illustrative point to have fellowship as well as leadership. And I guess all of us are in that role somewhere. We're not kings everywhere. We are serving other leaders. We are serving other people. We are serving other organizations. But in some areas, we have the lead and we take the lead.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good. Really good. Well, guys, this has been fantastic. And that actually is a great way to end there, because I think it fits back to what Bruce Man, you were saying about the binary nature of what we do. We are leaders. We are kings and priests, right? So there is that role. We want to take that authority, but we're also servants. Let this mind be in you that was in Christ. So that's that humble servant leadership, really important. So guys, again, we just scratched the surface and some more dialogue about leadership. We have at least one more week. at least one more week on leadership next week. And so thank you for joining us today. Hey, if you haven't already, why don't you just hit that button that you clicked on today? Like what we're doing, follow us, get a hold of us, become part of our Kingdomize global community. It's growing. We've had great response to that. So do that. Reach out to us. Let us know how things are going with you, how we can help you and serve you and follow even what you're doing. We'd love to share a little bit of your story as well. And so thanks for that. Have a great day today. And join us next week on Kingdomize the podcast. Thanks for joining us today on Kingdomize the podcast. Let's keep the discussion going throughout the week on our socials or on our website, kingdomizeglobal.com. Contact us today to see how we can walk together to see more of God's kingdom in your city as it is in heaven.